Here's a very neat little tool that I wanted to introduce as you're going through the qualitative risk assessment. This is Risk Ranger, and as you see, it's available here, so you can always pause this if you would like to know more details. This is a risk ranking tool, and I will make it available in the course. It has a spreadsheet here that I'm going to go over in a second, but what you should know is here on this fourth tab is the coding. This is where the synthesis algorithm is. Now, if you're okay with math, you won't have any problem figuring this out. If math is not your preferred subject matter, there'll be somebody in your office who can figure this out. So I'm not going to say much about that. I just want to walk you through this. This is a tool that was developed to produce semi-quantitative risk rankings. Now this is important because it's an idea we haven't really addressed together much. This has numerical answers, as you will see, but the numbers don't behave as numbers. For example, a higher number means a greater risk. Some commodity pathogen pairs that you have in mind may result in a rating of 64, and another might result in a rating of 32. And ordinarily 64 is twice as big as 32, but that's when we are using quantitative risk assessment. When we use semi-quantitative, it's using numbers in place of words, and all we can say is 64 is more than 32. It's not necessarily twice as risky. Okay? But I'm going to go through this very briefly, and I actually started this without a specific idea in mind. So we might say, suppose this is salmonella and chicken. And first you're asked, excuse me, I have a bit of a cough here, to rate the hazard severity. And let's say this is a moderate hazard. It requires medical intervention in a lot of cases. How susceptible is the population of interest? Of course, you have to have a population in mind, and we're going to use all members of the population. We'll let that stay where it is. And now we're going to look at what's the probability of exposure to food. So notice we have something about consequences up here, and now we're going to talk about exposure. What's the frequency of consumption? We'll assume this is eaten on a daily basis. I'll let you read about how, if you don't find the answer you want in the pull down menus, you can sometimes enter them in these cells, but I want to keep this video short, so let's skip that. The proportion of the population consuming the product, let's say it's most of the people, 75% of the people eat chicken. This tool was developed for Australia, and so you can see the different provinces of Australia. We're going to just leave it at Australia. And since there's no one in the class at the moment from Australia, we could specify the size of the population here. But again, for simplicity, we'll just use what's in there. Now, we want to know part C is the probability of the food containing an infectious dose. And this is an important piece. Okay? So it asks what's the probability of contamination of the raw product per serving. And I'll say, let's suppose it's common. 50% of all the raw chicken has an infectious dose. Okay? And what is the effect of processing? Excuse me. Well, cooking reliably eliminates the hazard, but let's say we know that a lot of people don't cook chicken properly, so we'll pick the process slightly reduces hazards. Okay, and now as we move down, is there potential for recontamination after processing? We'll say yes, but it's minor. You might take the cooked chicken and put it back on the bloody plate. How effective is the post-processing control? And let's say it's not relevant. The level of the risk agent's not going to change. But if you felt there was time and temperature abuse, you could say gross abuse occurs. Or if there was another kill step, for example, you could say it's well controlled. What increase in the post-processing contamination level would cause infection or intoxication to the average consumer? Well, let's say there's none, because what we're interested in is the chicken that doesn't get cooked well. But again, if there was time and temperature abuse, we could select another value. The effect of preparation before eating. This says meal preparation reliably eliminates the hazard. And let's say it has no effect. I want to say it has no effect, but for some reason it's not letting me do that. So we'll leave it right there where it looks, okay, where it is, okay? So what we're going to do ultimately is we come down here to this bottom line, risk ranking, and we see this has a ranking of 63. And suppose we went through and did something where there were very few eaters. So just over here under question 4, I'm going to change it to very few. And you see the risk dropped from 63 to 56. So you can play with this tool. It's kind of a neat tool. It has a number of criteria, and we're seeing some problems here with reading this. I hope you won't see that once you get it in your hands. You'll be able to size things differently, so it'll space out better. I made things larger so you could see them in the video. But anyway, have a look and feel free to ask questions.